And we are live.
Good evening, everyone. I'll call to order this combined Committee of the Whole Operations and Planning Administration meeting. I'd ask if you'd rise if you're able as we read the invocation. As we come together today, we recognize the great responsibilities laid upon us. Our council will always strive to understand the needs of the people we serve and to use power wisely and well. Our purpose is to establish and maintain a city of prosperity and righteousness where freedom prevails and where justice rules. Let us also not forget those who've served our community who are no longer with us so we can continue to do the work that we must in their memory. Please be seated. Juliet, have you called the roll?
Roll has been taken. Thank you.
All right. Are there any members of the committee who need to make a declaration of pecuniary interest? Now is the time to do it. Not seeing any raised hands. So at this time, I'm asking the committee members if there's anything you'd like separated for discussion purposes. Yes, Councillor Martin.
6.1.4, the police station task force report.
All right. Anything else, Councillor Carpenter?
Oh, yes, 6.2.1, the minutes. Specifically 6.2.11.
Right. Councillor Sless.
Yes, 6.1.3.
All right, not seeing any other raised hands. We have. Sorry, Councillor Carpenter, go ahead.
Yes, well, that Councillor Sless jogged my memory. 6.1.3 names some properties in the area where I own a house. So I'd like to declare a conflict of interest on 6.1.3 because I own a house in the area of one of the recommendations for designation.
All right, so we'll duly note your conflict and thus another reason for separating it. Not seeing any other raised hands. I think that's it in terms of which items have been separated. So I believe Councillor Martin, you've got the motion to approve the items that have not been separated for discussion.
Thank you. I move second by Councillor McCurry that all items for consideration and consent 6.1 and 6.2 not separated for discussion purposes be approved.
All right, Madam Clerk, please before you take the vote, would you please read the title of the items that we're voting on?
Thank you. So the items that are being voted on currently are 6.1.1 Southwest Task Force Report 2022-07-19, 6.1.2 Public Works Corporate Policy Updates, 6.2.2 the minutes from Committee of the Whole Planning and Administration, and 6.2.1.2 and 6.2.1.3. All items not separated for discussion purposes carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sakoli, Vanderstelt, Sless, McCurry, Martin, Carpenter, Antosky, Van Tilburg, and Wall.
All right, we have no registered delegations to speak to any items appearing on tonight's agenda, and there are no presentations. So we'll move right into the items that have been separated for consideration consent. And Councillor Antosky, you can put the motion, please, on the floor to have the separated items on the floor for consideration.
Thank you, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Carpenter that all items for consideration consent separated for discussion purposes be approved.
All right, thank you. Let's move into item 6.1, which is the Heritage Register project, noting Councillor Carpenter's conflict. Councillor Sless, you asked for this to be separated.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I received a call from the party that owns 34 McMurray Street, which is on the register, and they would sincerely like to have it removed. It's a medical building. If people are familiar with it, it's kind of behind the health unit. It's got like a rounded front. And it just opened up, was just revamped and opened up as an autism center and a mental health facility. And they're quite concerned that they're trying to bring more doctors into the city, and with restrictions on it, they're concerned that might be hampered. So they respectfully asked to be removed from the list.
So I think you need to move an amendment. Do you want to move
Yes.
that?
I would so move that 34 McMurray be removed from the list. Seeking a seconder.
Second by Councillor Carpenter. No, you can't. You've got a conflict. Unfortunately, I saw Councillor McCreary put his hand up. Not, okay. So Councillor Van Tilborg, are you seconding it? Okay, it's on
Third
the,
time's a charm.
great. So it's on the floor for discussion. Councillor Sluss, anything further?
No, I think I said everything that I wanted to say. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor McCreary.
Mayor, thank you very much. The register simply is a method of informing the public, most notably folks who would like to be investing in properties for redevelopment, which would involve knocking down the building, that this building is of interest to the corporation of the city of Brantford, as recommended by the consultant, recommended by the Heritage Committee, and now before this committee of the whole tonight. It places no restrictions whatsoever on the ability of that building owner to make renovations. They're free to do whatever they like. Being listed simply as a red flag to developers, telling them that we have an interest in this building and we don't want to knock down. There's a lot of misunderstanding in the community and a lot of trepidation around being on the register. It does not mean it's being designated. It simply means it's an interesting building. We followed the process completely. And the committee and the consultant can't make folks understand that it's not a bad thing. So I would hope that everybody would continue to support the Heritage Committee, which works like the Dickens on behalf of the corporation of the city of Brantford and whose hearts are in this. No harm will come to the owner of 34 McMurray. And I can't see why being on the register would deter any doctor from wanting to live and work in this city and in that building, which has been strikingly redeveloped on the interior and maintains a heritage facade, which is most interesting.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I agree with Councilor McCurry. The listing it doesn't put any restrictions on it, whereas designating it does. And I'm loath to designate a building against the wishes of the owner. But since this puts no restrictions on it, I don't see any need for this amendment, so I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Councillor Scully.
I have a question for staff. Have we received other objection letters for other property owners that object to being listed on this register? If I'm recalling correctly, I think I know the answer, but I want to verify that, please.
Through the chair, Patrick Vooser, planner of long range planning. We have received letters in the past from other property owners. When we receive a letter, and that's in response to a notice about this project and notice with all the particulars about the meetings it's being discussed at, we attach those letters to our staff reports for council to consider and committee.
And how many objection letters have we received to date?
Through the chair, to date across all the phases, I couldn't say. I can say for sure for this phase, there's 3 property owners objected. I need to look at my records to confirm the total amount.
And how many properties have we removed from the registrar?
Through the chair, I recollect in part 2, no properties. I'd have to again confirm that. 3 properties were left off the register in part 1 of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would add to the debate. I mean, there is an implication of the slide that there is a pause that's required before they can get demolition permit. But it doesn't prevent them from doing that, just provides for an opportunity to rethink it. I'm a little bit concerned that we had 3 that asked for this, and I appreciate Councillor Sluss is bringing forward something that a resident, a property owner requested him to do so. thinking though that it might be a bit unfair to the other two. But Councillor Wall, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
I want to echo some of the comments that were made. I also wholeheartedly support the councillor bringing this forward. He was asked by a constituent to do it, and that's his job. So great work, Councillor Sless, on that. Couldn't support it at all, unfortunately. As a member of the Heritage Committee, there's just a tremendous amount of work that's gone into the registry, and this doesn't prohibit anything other than perhaps a stay of demolition. We have to protect our history and our heritage in the community, and this property was marked as a property of interest. It's not being designated. They can do whatever they want to it. It's just marked of note. So, I mean, I just can't support it, and I urge the council to not support it. And if anything, if we were leaning towards supporting it, this should be sent back to the Heritage Committee so they could provide comment on it, because that's what the Heritage Committee is for. So, thanks.
Okay, I'll call a vote then on the amendment, noting Councillor Carpenter's conflict.
The amendment is lost on a recorded vote of 2-7. Those in favor, Councillors Sless and Van Tilburg. Those against, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sakoli, Vanderstelt, McCreary, Martin, Antosky, and Wall.
All right, any further debate on the item that's not amended? Not seeing any. Oh, yes, Councillor Wall.
Hey, I don't have many speaking opportunities left. So I want to just talk really quickly about how incredible this project is. I've been on the Heritage Committee long, since before I was on council, and this city is just ripe with history and culture. And I urge anybody who's watching or our media partners who are helping get the word out that people should get to know what this project is really about. If you've got family visiting town, which I often do, I love going for a walk in our historic neighborhoods and pointing out the architecture and the culture and the stories. Every neighborhood has a home or several homes that are just exquisite works of art. And this registry is a great way to just engulf yourself in the history of our city. And this is probably the last time I'll get to speak on this report. Take a look at the good work that our Heritage Committee is doing, and take a look around and just admire how absolutely beautiful our community is. Thanks.
Great. So Julie, would you please administer the vote?
Item 6.1.3 Heritage Register Project carries unanimously on a recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Sakoli, Vanderstelt, Sless, McCreary, Martin, Antosky, Van Tilburg, and Wall, noting Councillor Carpenter's conflict of interest.
All right, we'll move on to 6.1.4, the Police Station Task Force Report. Councillor Martin, you asked for this to be separated.
Yes, thank you. I hope there's someone here who can answer some questions on this report. The last appendix in it has numbers to justify the net zero aspect of things. And it talks about savings of $70,000 in the gas utility cost. And then when it talks about the total annual operating costs, there's a $240,000 difference. So if we're saving $70,000 on the gas, where's the other $170,000 in savings from?
Through the chair to the counselor. So you're looking at the 70,000. Just let me get my bearings here since I walked up while you were talking. The gas utility cost of 70,000. And your question again, one more time.
Okay, well, on the last part of that, or near the last page, the second to last page, it says
yeah.
total annual operating costs. If we don't do anything for net zero, it's 475,000. And if we do the net zero option, it's 233,000. So of that $240,000 difference, 70,000 is the gas savings. Where's the rest of it?
So through the chair, the rest of it is because the electricity costs are higher, but because we're removing the load, like what we're drawing from, That is over 20 years, operational savings of 240. It's because not only have we avoided the carbon tax, but we're making the building more efficient, so the draw is lower.
But it indicates that the hydro usage is higher.
Hydrogen? Can you repeat that? I missed it.
Electric utility cost,
Mhm.
if we don't go for net zero, it's 325.
Mhm.
If we go the net zero option, it's 342. So electricity's costing us more, not less.
It's costing us more, but we are avoiding the draw. As I said, that the building will become more efficient. So you're actually receiving a greater cost savings over the course of 20 years by removing the load, the draw that we're asking for.
Okay, I must be the only one that's confused by this, because if you're saving 70,000 and it's costing you $10,000 more, there's no way you get a $240,000 annual savings.
Right.
Can I jump in here?
Please.
Gord Gavrilovic, Manager of Facilities Capital Development. Through the chair to you, Councillor Martin. We are also looking at adding solar generation as part of the net zero option, which will eliminate a lot of the electricity usage. So that's where we're looking at the additional savings. If you see, there is a line there that electricity costs will be offset by almost $120,000 by adding the solar panels.
Okay, yeah, it says savings of 119. That still doesn't add up to the annual operating cost savings.
It does, because we've also reduced, we're taking into account not including the carbon emissions tax that would be added on if we didn't do net zero. So when you add that cost avoidance plus the electrical usage using the solar panels and eliminating gas costs, it adds up to 240,000 annually.
Okay, and when I asked at the police services. Board-
Counselor, you've gone beyond your 4 minutes. You want me to put down for a second time?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, another 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I asked at the Police Services Board meeting if the carbon tax savings were factored into the 20-year payback, I was assured that they were not. Now you're saying they are.
The carbon tax savings has been identified as, again, the 80,000 per year. It was extracted out because what we were talking about was there's no minimal amount to carbon tax. So what I was trying to give to you was provide, if we go with a building that allows us to become more efficient, there's a number of components within the infrastructure that are at the end of their life cycle. So by building a more robust, efficient building, we're not necessarily saving carbon tax, but we're cost avoiding into the future. So that's why I left it out, or we left it out, to be able to show you a more efficient building. And the overall costs per year would be, the carbon tax is basically a difference of $10,000 per year, because you're not using carbon emissions. You're not using a utility that's carbon emission. It's not natural gas anymore. It's electricity.
Okay,
So
and is the cost of the solar panels built into the net zero pricing?
Through the chair, it is built in through the cost. Yes. It's built into the cost of the base building.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McCurry.
Mayor, thank you. There may be a benefit to this committee hearing the presentation that staff could give us. You really don't get the full impact of the discussion simply by looking at the report, and that may be something that we want to perhaps schedule a time for before the end of this cycle when we have to pass judgment on this council, Mayor. I do want to ask, so our net zero plan is to move off natural gas, is that correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
And
That's
that
one of,
would be upon completion of the building construction?
that would be upon completion of the building construction in
And
2 to
at this
3
point in
years.
time, the cost of electricity is 3 times the cost of natural gas?
Through the chair, that's correct. It's
Yeah.
set to change.
Okay, and we're also going to be gaining some energy from the ground. Is that, do I recollect that properly?
Yes, through the chair, we're looking at those pieces through the design now with this subconsultants and engineers. That's correct.
And solar panels?
Solar photovoltaic panels, excuse me, through the chair on the block 1 building expansion.
Now, all that stuff is contained within the premium cost that was identified as the net zero option, correct?
It's identified through the chair, identified through the premium cost, correct?
Yeah, and that's, remind me how much that is? It's like 5 mil, is that correct?
The total through the chair is 5 mil.
Okay,
Uh,
so, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, through the chair, subject to, again, be fine tuned as we move through the iterative process of design. Yeah.
Yes, and for the benefit of committee, when we say fine tuned, that usually means it's going to cost more. So, and maybe less, I don't know, but
Less.
our experience has been that as we fine tune, we usually find some things that we've maybe overlooked and you can rest assured that number probably won't decrease a lot. So what's before us today is simply a matter of whether you want to hold true to the fact that we declared a climate emergency, right? If you voted in favor of a climate emergency, you probably should support this today. But it is a premium cost, and much of what we're talking about is fluid, and you see a change in government, things may change in a hurry, and we'll be net zero ready, but we'll have made that choice. So the committee voted in favor of the net zero something to 1, me being the 1. And the thought was that it would come here today with more information, so this committee would be more learned than we were I guess about a week ago. So it's up to you folks. We take direction. The committee, Councillor Martin and I, Chair Littell, leaving somebody out, I'm sure. Councillor Vanderstel. I was just kidding. I just wanted to see your hand go up, mister. So, we've had a good look at this and that's the conclusion that was come to. So it's up to you folks now. We do want a decision tonight though, because as this committee and staff have reminded us time after time after time is money. And, the sooner we arrive at decisions, the sooner we can get on and get this build and hopefully come in on time and on budget.
Councillor Van Tilburg.
It was mentioned earlier, something in the ground. I assume that's geothermal.
We're reviewing that option.
So there is no figures here right now for geothermal.
At this time, the 5 million through the chair, at this time, the 5 million includes all those components, not subject to change with additional scopes. So at this time, we are including geothermal in the rationale.
Okay, so we have other buildings that are geothermal, that we built geothermal and solar panels, things like the John Noble home has geothermal. So that's not necessarily a new thing. So that is factored in. But do we know what the savings is from the geothermal? You were going over the savings on the electrical part. What's the savings on the geothermal?
Through the chair, we do not have those numbers at this, again, early stage in the game. The intent is to show primarily based on the question at the Police Service Task Force meeting, what the electrical impact would be, the high cost or low cost of natural gas versus electrical, but the in-ground heating, we haven't tabled as an identified.
So, but
cost
you've
saving.
got the physical cost components calculated. So your figure here, if geothermal is installed, would actually go down. It would be savings.
Through the
in the-
chair, that's correct. We would be able to submit additional reports as we progress through the design to show our sharpened net zero pencil that we can achieve potential more cost savings. Correct.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Antosky.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Van Tilburg just was talking about one of the things I was going to talk about. And at the risk of sounding like a broken record when we talk about these initiatives, as a council, I think that it's important that, of course, we look at the cost. This is an upfront cost that we're talking about right now. We don't have all the numbers. But part of our mandate is to make a livable city and to love where we live and to be healthy. And so there's a triple bottom line here. This is the cost to do the build. This is the social cost, and there's the environmental cost, which if we don't start making moves on that now is going to cost us a whole lot more down the road. So I think that we need to look at this more broadly, and I will continue for the short time that I have left to talk about the triple bottom line, because I think it's important for us to broaden our scope at in terms of what we look at. Thank you.
Councillor Vanderstel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Rick has left the room. Maybe, I'm not sure if I can ask you this question or not, but I'll give it a shot. To your knowledge of all the other municipal building structures and everything that we own and manage as a municipality, do we have any active solar happening right now?
Through the chair, I do not know the answer to that, but I can definitely provide additional information.
Through Mayor Davis, Councilor Anderson, I don't believe we do have anything right now that's net zero or even net zero ready, to my knowledge, but we are doing a review of that through our facilities group, as well as doing a retrofit study of our buildings as well, just to see what would be needed to become net zero.
And do we have any geothermal in any of our buildings, any of our structures?
Through you, Mayor Davis, I believe John Noble Home I heard today, but other than that, I don't think there's any other building that we have.
Okay. Last question. Hope it's not an unfair question, but have we finally insulated the wall of the large pool at Wayne Gretzky? Or is that still uninsulated?
I don't have that answer for you.
Okay, I knew it was an unfair question, but it's been kind of hanging around for a while there. Mr. Mayor, it's, you know, you can plug in a destination of anywhere on Google Maps, Google Earth, and most other municipalities, especially in Europe, you're going to find an awful lot more attention paid to delivering a product called solar energy, and it's been working quite well for quite some time. If you do a bit more research, you will see that there is a cost benefit analysis that we have not yet gone through in this committee or any other committee with regard to geothermal and how we could retrofit our buildings to make sure that our costs, long-term operating costs, drop over time. That is something that we had the courage to have a look at with Ms. Romney when she was here, and it's an opportunity. So in terms of where we should go for the future, if you're following most of the statements made by the people who are the strongest proponents of solar and photovoltaic, you'll see that we are in transition. There's no doubt about that. We're in transition to electric vehicles as well. I would suggest that we certainly entertain these options, not only as cost savings for the next 25 years until we have to rebuild again, but we take into consideration that we're behind. And I think we need to start playing catch up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Wall.
Hey, thanks, Mayor Davis. You're doing a great job, by the way. A little rusty, but that's okay. Respectfully. If you voted for the climate change emergency, you should vote yes on this. I'll be voting yes on this. Second, Councillor Antosky, you're amazing. If we think this costs a lot now, wait till you see what it costs later. That needs to be repeated. I want to just add on to that if I can. We got eyes on us. We've got eyes on us from the public. We've got eyes on us from the private sector. We've got eyes on us from other municipalities. And if we don't do what we said we were going to do, if we don't do this now, then we just give energy and ammo to other people to just ignore this stuff. Yeah, it costs money. But the cost, I mean, the result, I guess, is a better future for my family, for your family, for the people who elected us to be here. And can I be honest? Do I understand it? I think so. I think I get that we've got to do this because it's the right thing to do. And I trust our team, our staff. I trust the scientists and the engineers and the people who are out there. We have to do this because it's the right thing to do. And I'm happy to support this. And sorry to the taxpayer, but trust me, when there's a world here for your grandkids and their grandkids, you'll be happy we made this decision. At least that's what I believe. Thanks. All right, someone turn this off for me.
Well, so, we passed that climate declaration almost 3 years ago. And if you don't follow through with something, then what you've done is meaningless gesturing. And for me, it was an important moment for me. And I've many times thanked Councillor Antosky for showing me the light and making me appreciate just the enormity of the issue. And that simply saying, well, some other places in the world aren't doing it, so why should we be doing it? No longer is a sufficient response. Because if we don't do it, then no one else is going to do it. In fact, that's the beauty of this particular proposal, which is the first of its kind for us at the city in the totality of being zero in terms of the building generates electricity. It takes care of its heating requirements for everything that's on site. And that's the first time we'll have done a building like that. And so in some ways, it's kind of a demonstration project, not just for us, but for the community. And that's what I think is particularly important about this particular project. It has great symbolic significance. The municipality showing leadership, which hopefully many other stakeholders, organizations, and businesses in the community will follow in the years ahead because they'll see how it can be done. And but the economics can't be ignored. And for me, an important consideration was, so the payback would get you to zero in terms of the cost of it is about 20 years. And for me, the lifespan of the project is thus critical. And that's why the second part of this resolution, which is providing for the third floor, is absolutely essential to make this reasonable. Because if the building's only going to last 10 years and you've got a 20-year payback, those numbers don't look that good. But what we're doing, we haven't even talked about it, is the adding of the third floor should give us 30 years life expectancy, if not more, which gives us time to realize the payback. Last point I make is we're doing a pretty good job moving forward in terms of electrifying our fleet. The heavy construction equipment will be a challenge, likely dealt with through hydrogen. But that's only 50% of the carbon that the city operation generates. 50% are buildings and heating buildings and cooling buildings. And we absolutely have to find another way of doing that besides using natural gas. I mean, the federal and provincial governments are pushing us that way, so we might as well start preparing. So I think in a lot of different respects, this project makes sense, adding in the net zero. And I'm sure when we look back at it, we'll say it was sort of a turning point in terms of how we design and use our buildings here in the city. So for me, it's not just the economics, it's not just the savings, it's the symbolic significance of this particular project. So, Councilor Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the delegation, when we looked at those numbers for the savings for electricity savings and the gas savings, did we include an inflation kicker in there, what the price of gas and electricity will be going to?
Through the chair, there is no consideration of inflation, no. It
Okay,
was
so
strictly-
that's expecting gas and electricity costs to stay at the current price they are now.
It was, through the chair, largely looking at the carbon emissions, which was going to increase from $50 to 170 within the next few years.
Yeah, that's the carbon tax.
Correct.
But the actual price of fuel, we're not, that's even a bigger payback as well. So if we were to say, if we were just even at a guesstimate of 2% a year, which we know is not what we've seen in fuel price, electricity prices, those increases will be, they'll multiply the increased savings greater than what you've even portrayed in this report.
Through the chair, that's correct. Those numbers we can't quantify at this time. So for the purposes of producing this appendix, we did not include them.
Thank you. I just thought it was important to make sure that the public understood that the savings would be, this is the savings at zero increases. And the increase will be, we all know increases in fuel and hydro costs have always gone up, most times above the rate of inflation. So we can even expect greater savings in the future. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any further raised hands. Julia, please administer the vote.
Item 6.1.4 Police Station Task Force Report 2022-08-29 carried unanimously on recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Secoli, Vandersteltz, Less, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, and Wall.
All right, so we have one remaining item, Councillor Carpenter, 6.2.1, the minutes. I think you said it was 6.2.11.
11. Specifically 6.2.11. And if we look at page 1 of that report, it talks, I declared a conflict of interest on 6.1.9 of the committee of the whole, William Street to our parking, and that my conflict says Councillor Carpenter declared a conflict on this item as he lives within the vicinity. And as it's supposed to be as I own property within the vicinity. And I like that correction. And there's one more here, and that's page 18 of this same report, where we had a discussion on a new tax discussion that was pretty heated. I just got to get to my page. Thank you. Page 18 of that particular report, specifically clause C1, it has me voting in the affirmative, and I know I voted in the negative. Yes.
Thank you. We'll have the minutes correct.
Thank you.
All right, with that correction, any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the vote. Or Julia, please take the vote.
The minutes as amended are carried unanimously on recorded vote. Those in favor, Mayor Davis, Councillor Secoli, Vandersteltz, Sless, McCreary, Martin, Carpenter, and Toski, Van Tilburg, and Wall.
All right, so we have no resolutions on tonight's agenda. We have 3 notices of motion. Councillor McCreary, you have 2 of them. If you would read the titles of your 2 notices of motion, please.
Do you wish me to go out of order?
Yes.
Be glad to. 8.1, safe housing supply, 8.3, asset disposition policy and public engagement.
And I have one 8.2, 793 Colburn Street building permit fee reduction. So with that, tonight's business is